The night air was cold and sharp, and the farm lay silent under the faint light of a crescent moon. Edrin Hale, a small, wiry man with calloused hands, walked slowly across the field, lantern in hand. His eyes were fixed on the same old tree that had stood at the edge of his property for as long as he could remember. But tonight, as every night for the past week, the tree was burning. A small, flickering flame rose from its center, casting long shadows across the frost-covered ground. Edrin's heart tightened. He had seen many strange things in his life, but nothing like this. The tree burned, but the fire never spread. It never consumed the leaves or bark. By morning, it looked exactly the same as it had the day before, untouched and alive. The source of the fire was the baby dragon. Pyra, no bigger than a large goat, crouched at the base of the tree. Its scales glimmered faintly like molten metal, and smoke curled gently from its nostrils. Pyra's eyes were bright, golden, and full of fear. It hissed softly whenever Edrin moved too close, and its tail flicked nervously. Despite its small size, the dragon carried a presence that felt ancient and wise. Edrin had seen dragons only in old stories, tales told around the fires in his childhood, but this was real. And this one was focused on the tree, guarding it with a fierce and desperate devotion. Edrin took a deep breath and stepped closer, careful not to startle the creature. "Why do you burn it?" he whispered. "What's down there?" The dragon didn't answer, of course, but it flinched and curled closer to the tree. The fire's light danced across the frost, and Edrin noticed something strange. Every time the flame flickered higher, the ground beneath the tree seemed to quiver. A faint hum, almost like a whisper, rose from below. The earth itself felt alive, and Edrin's stomach sank. Whatever was under that tree was old, older than the land, older than any man, older even than the first settlements of his ancestors. He knelt beside the roots, brushing away the frost and dirt, and his fingers traced something cold and hard beneath the soil. It wasn't stone or metal he recognized, but something smooth like polished bone, yet unnatural. The tree's roots wrapped around it like chains. Edrin pulled back, fear tightening his chest. He had stumbled upon something that was not meant to be found, something that had been sleeping for centuries. And Pyra, small and trembling, had been guarding it all this time, using fire to warn anyone who dared come near. Edrin returned to the farmhouse that night with his mind racing. The wind whispered through the broken shutters, carrying the faint scent of smoke and scorched wood. He had seen dragons before in stories, yes, but never a baby dragon acting with purpose, with fear and determination. It was unusual, terrifying, and yet strangely noble. Pyra wasn't burning the tree for mischief or hunger. It wasn't playful, it wasn't chaotic. The fire was a signal, a warning, and perhaps even a form of protection. And whatever it was protecting, it could destroy a man in ways Edrin could barely imagine. The next evening he returned. He brought food, hoping to gain the creature's trust. A small basket of roasted meat and dried fruits rested in his hands. The dragon's eyes narrowed suspiciously, smoke curling around its small snout. But it didn't attack. Instead, it watched silently as though testing him, measuring whether he belonged here or was just another intruder. Edrin set the basket down a few steps away and waited. Hours passed. The fire danced higher, shadows stretching into the night. And then, with a sudden flicker of wings, Pyra leaned forward, sniffing the food. It took a cautious bite, then another, until it had finished the basket. Its eyes met Edrin's, a silent understanding passing between them. That night, Edrin decided to watch closer. He stayed by the tree until the moon sank low, hiding in the shadow of a hill. The ground began to tremble more violently than before. Pyra's fire flickered, brighter and hotter this time, as if reacting to some invisible threat below. Edrin froze. The earth itself seemed to shiver, sending a ripple through the frost and into his bones. He realized the tree wasn't just alive, it was a seal, a living lock keeping something buried and dangerous beneath it. And the baby dragon, small and seemingly fragile, was its guardian. Days passed and Edrin grew braver. He walked alongside Pyra, speaking softly, learning its rhythms. Each night the fire burned, each night the ground trembled, and each night he discovered more signs of what lay beneath. Strange markings etched in metal glimmered faintly when the flames danced across them. Deep hollows in the soil whispered faintly when he pressed his ear to the ground. The whole farm seemed to hold its breath, as though it knew he was no longer just a visitor but a participant in something far larger than himself. One night, as frost painted the edges of his coat and the stars shimmered cold and distant, Edrin realized something terrifying. The fire and the tremors were growing stronger. Pyra's small body shook, smoke curling rapidly from its nostrils. Whatever slept beneath the tree was stirring. He could feel it in the vibrations through the earth, in the way the shadows leapt across the frozen ground, in the intense heat of the dragon's fire. It was awakening. And the baby dragon, though small and fierce, could not hold it back alone for long. Edrin understood then that he had a choice. He could run, leave the farm, pretend he had never seen the fire or the trembling earth. Or he could stay, face the unknown, and join the dragon in guarding whatever lay beneath the ancient roots. His chest tightened as he made his decision. He would not abandon Pyra. He would not let the power below rise uncontrolled. Humans had always thought of dragons as threats, as creatures to be feared or conquered. But now, in this cold night with frost biting his fingers and fear knotting his stomach, Edrin saw the truth. Dragons were protectors. And perhaps, for the first time, humans could also be guardians of something far older and far more terrible than themselves. The fire flickered one last time that night, brighter than ever, illuminating the trembling roots of the tree and the small, determined face of Pyra. The baby dragon had found an ally in a human, and Edrin Hale had discovered that courage was not measured by size, but by choice. And deep beneath the soil, something ancient stirred, sensing that its prison was no longer alone in the world. Edrin Hale could feel the frost in his bones as he stepped into the field before dawn. The old tree still stood, its trunk scarred by tiny burns, yet its leaves shimmered with morning dew. Pyra, the baby dragon, crouched near the base, shivering, not from cold but from fear. Edrin had learned over the past week that the dragon was afraid, and that fear was more dangerous than fire. Its small body trembled every time the ground quaked, and the flames it created were more desperate than protective. Something below the earth was moving, and Pyra could sense it long before Edrin ever felt the tremors. The farmer approached slowly, careful not to startle the creature. "It's okay, little one," he whispered. Pyra's golden eyes glimmered nervously as it hissed softly. Edrin knelt beside the tree and ran his fingers over the frost-covered roots. The soil was soft and warm underneath, unlike the frozen earth around it. A faint vibration thrummed through his hands, and he realized it was not just the dragon's fear, it was the thing beneath the tree, stirring, awake and alive. Pyra's fire had been a signal, a warning, and now the tremors were growing stronger. Over the next few days, Edrin observed Pyra closely. The baby dragon was small, no bigger than a goat, but its presence carried an old strength. It would burn the tree every night, not out of mischief, but to reinforce something unseen. Each flicker of fire seemed to pulse with a purpose. Yet the closer the farmer got, the more Pyra trembled. It wanted to protect the secret beneath the tree, but it also wanted to keep Edrin safe. The dragon was intelligent in ways he could not fully understand, aware that this human might be the only one capable of helping. One evening, as the sun dipped behind distant hills, Edrin noticed strange markings in the soil near the tree. Thin lines of metal glimmered faintly under the frost, etched in patterns that reminded him of stars and constellations. He traced them carefully with his finger, and the vibration beneath the ground increased, almost as if the earth itself was responding to his touch. Pyra hissed and flared a small flame, sending sparks into the air. The dragon was afraid of what lay beneath, but it was also afraid of losing control of the fire that kept the roots stable. Edrin realized that Pyra's fear was not weakness, it was knowledge. The dragon knew something humans had long forgotten. The world beneath the soil was alive in ways people could not imagine. The tremors were not natural, they were the movements of something ancient, something made long before humans or even the first human colonies existed. Pyra had been guarding it, burning the tree in a ritual it had never been taught, guided only by instinct and fear. Edrin understood that the dragon's flames were not destruction, they were protection. Determined to help, Edrin decided to observe the dragon closely at night. He stayed hidden behind the farmhouse, watching as Pyra flared its small wings and ignited the tree's trunk. Sparks danced across the frost as the fire pulsed in rhythm with the trembling ground. The vibration grew stronger, more insistent, and Pyra's small body shook violently. Edrin noticed that the closer the fire burned to the roots, the calmer the dragon became. The flames were a signal to the thing below, do not rise, do not break free. Pyra's fear was the only thing keeping it contained. The next night, Edrin brought a small mirror to reflect the dragon's fire. He wanted to understand the rhythm to see if he could predict the tremors. Pyra watched him suspiciously, smoke curling from its nostrils. The fire flared higher than usual, illuminating the frost and casting long shadows across the field. Edrin saw the roots twist around a metallic object buried deep beneath. It was smooth and dark, unlike anything he had ever touched. The metal hummed faintly under the dragon's flame as if it were alive. Pyra hissed in panic and Edrin froze. He realized the dragon was not just afraid of what was beneath the ground, it was afraid of failing to protect it. Edrin reached out slowly, letting his hand hover over the roots. "I won't hurt it," he whispered. Pyra flinched, wings flicking, but did not attack. Edrin could feel the vibrations through the frost-hardened soil, a pulse that matched the dragon's heartbeat. It was alive, old, and dangerous. The baby dragon had been standing guard alone for so long that its small body had grown tense with constant vigilance. Its fire was a weapon and a shield, and it was exhausting to maintain. Over the following days, Edrin began to help Pyra in subtle ways. He would stand by the tree, placing small stones around the roots to reinforce them. He learned to predict the tremors, feeling them through his boots before the dragon flared. Slowly, a bond formed between them. Pyra began to trust him, though fear never left its eyes. It allowed Edrin to stand close, even touch its scaled head while it burned the tree. The dragon's body still shook with terror, but it no longer hissed at the farmer. Edrin understood that trust could calm fear, even in a creature centuries old at heart. One night, the tremors became stronger than ever. The frost cracked underfoot as the ground vibrated in long rolling pulses. Pyra's fire shot up in sudden bursts, almost blinding in its intensity. Edrin crouched beside it, pressing a hand to its side. "I'm here," he said. "We can do this together." The dragon's golden eyes met his, wide with panic, but for the first time, they shared a silent understanding. The thing beneath the tree was waking faster, and alone, Pyra could not hold it. Together, human and dragon, they might have a chance. Edrin realized that the baby dragon's fear was the key to its strength. Pyra was afraid because it understood the danger, because it knew the balance of fire and soil kept something deadly sealed. Its trembling was not weakness, it was awareness, and awareness gave it the power to act at exactly the right moment. Edrin made a silent vow: he would not run. He would stand with the dragon, guarding the tree and whatever lay beneath it. Humans had long thought of dragons as beasts, but here in the cold and the frost, he understood something new. Dragons could be protectors and humans could learn to be guardians too. The night grew colder, the fire from Pyra glowing brighter than the stars above. The tremors pulsed like a heartbeat beneath the frost, stronger and more urgent than ever. Edrin wrapped his hands around a small metal rod he had found buried near the roots. It was nothing really, but it was something he could offer, a sign that he was willing to help. Pyra flared its wings, smoke rising like steam, and in that moment they both understood. Fear could be a guide, and courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. As the first light of dawn touched the field, the fire died down to a gentle glow. Pyra crouched low, exhausted, and Edrin stayed close, rubbing its side to calm the trembling scales. The tree stood unscathed, but beneath the frost and roots, something ancient had shifted. Pyra had burned it to remind the world that it was still a guardian, and Edrin had learned that humans, too, could become protectors when they dared to face what terrified them most. Edrin Hale had been with Pyra for days, watching the baby dragon guard the old tree. Each night, the fire burned brighter, each tremor beneath the soil stronger. He had learned to feel the vibrations in his boots, to read the pulse of the earth like a living thing. But nothing could have prepared him for what he found that morning. As the first weak sunlight touched the frost, Edrin noticed a hollow at the base of the tree. The roots had shifted slightly, exposing a smooth, dark surface. It was not stone, not wood, it was metal, old and polished, shaped with sharp precision unlike anything made by humans. He crouched closer, heart pounding. Pyra stirred beside him, smoke curling from its small nostrils. The dragon's body trembled, but its golden eyes were fixed on the hollow with a strange intensity. Edrin reached out carefully, brushing frost and soil from the metal. It was warm beneath his fingers, humming faintly as if it were alive. His pulse quickened. Whatever this was, it had been buried for centuries, hidden from humans, and Pyra had been its guardian without ever leaving the old tree. The baby dragon's fire had kept it contained, a small flame against something enormous and dangerous. Determined to see more, Edrin grabbed his tools from the farmhouse. Small spades and chisels, worn from years of farming, were nothing compared to what lay beneath the roots, but he had to try. He began to dig slowly, careful not to damage the metal beneath. The frost crumbled under his hands, and the vibrations beneath the ground grew stronger with each scoop of dirt. Pyra paced nervously, small wings flicking, flames dancing at the tips of its claws. The dragon hissed and Edrin froze. The humming beneath the roots grew louder, almost like a heartbeat. Whatever this was, it was waking. As the dirt fell away, Edrin saw the shape more clearly. It was a structure, a chamber buried deep beneath the old tree. The metal was smooth and dark, engraved with lines and symbols he could not understand. Some of the shapes glowed faintly under Pyra's fire, a soft light that pulsed in time with the vibrations. It was not human, not anything Edrin had ever seen. The chamber was ancient, older than the first human settlements, older even than the stories his grandfather had told of alien civilizations. His stomach turned. He realized that this was not just a hidden object. It was a sealed entity, something meant to remain buried for all time. Pyra hissed again, the fire at its claws flaring suddenly. Edrin stepped back, brushing frost from his sleeves. The dragon's small body trembled violently, but it did not leave. It had been waiting for him to understand, to see what lay beneath the roots without destroying it. The humming grew stronger, more insistent, and the earth trembled beneath their feet. Edrin felt a shiver run through his bones. This thing was alive in a way that defied explanation. The tree above was not a tree at all, it was a lock, a living seal grown over the chamber to keep whatever was inside trapped. Pyra's fire had been keeping it alive, keeping it contained, warning any intruder who came too close. He dug carefully around the edges, revealing more of the smooth metal surface. The chamber was shaped like a cylinder, tall and wide, with lines that twisted around it like circuits or veins. A faint blue glow pulsed from within, synchronized with the humming beneath the soil. Edrin swallowed hard. He realized the truth. This was a weapon, an ancient star weapon created by an alien race long extinct. The kind of thing that could destroy a planet or more if released. Pyra had been guarding it, small as it was, with nothing but its fear and fire. The baby dragon had carried a burden no human or dragon should ever bear alone. Edrin stepped back, unsure whether to continue. He had always believed humans were clever, capable of invention, but he had never imagined a force like this buried beneath his land. Pyra's eyes glimmered nervously in the morning light, smoke rising like steam. The baby dragon was afraid, not just of him, not just of the human world, but of what might happen if the chamber were disturbed. Edrin reached out again, brushing the frost from one of the glowing lines. The vibration intensified, the hum now almost a roar beneath the soil. Whatever had been asleep for centuries was stirring. He looked at Pyra, who crouched close to the roots, flames flickering nervously along its claws and snout. The dragon hissed softly, nudging Edrin back. It was warning him, do not touch it alone. The fear in Pyra was not weakness, it was understanding. The baby dragon knew the danger, knew that the earth itself could rise to crush anything that came near. And yet it had stayed here, guarding the chamber, burning the tree night after night, without asking for anything in return. Edrin felt a rush of respect and fear all at once. Determined, he began to clear more soil, uncovering the top of the cylinder. The glowing lines became more distinct, intricate patterns etched across the surface, some forming shapes that reminded him of stars or planets. The humming became almost unbearable, vibrating through his bones. Pyra flared its wings, flames licking the edges of the frost as if to reinforce the seal above. The dragon was small, trembling, yet filled with determination beyond anything Edrin had ever seen in a human or an animal. Its fire was precise, controlled, a weapon of necessity and protection. As he worked, Edrin realized the enormity of the responsibility that had fallen on them. Alone, Pyra could not hold the chamber closed for much longer. Its fire alone would not be enough if the tremors beneath the ground increased. The baby dragon had been chosen, somehow by instinct or fate, to protect this ancient thing. And now, by staying and helping, Edrin was also chosen. Humans had long believed they were weak compared to dragons, compared to alien technology, but here in the frost and soil, he understood that courage was measured not by size, but by willingness to act. The morning light grew brighter, illuminating the frost and the trembling roots. The cylinder pulsed gently beneath the surface, blue light flickering like a heartbeat. Pyra crouched, exhausted but vigilant, its golden eyes meeting Edrin's. In that moment the farmer understood something extraordinary. The chamber, the weapon, the trembling earth, all of it was dangerous beyond measure. But the bond between dragon and human, between fire and careful hands, could hold it at bay. Fear had guided the dragon and now it would guide him. Together they might just keep the thing beneath the roots sealed until help, or danger, came. Edrin took a deep breath, wiping sweat and frost from his face. Pyra hissed softly, flames curling from its nostrils. The vibration of the soil continued, steady and insistent, a reminder that what lay beneath was alive, waiting and aware. The baby dragon had done all this alone for so long. Now a human stood with it, ready to share the burden. The chamber beneath the old tree was ancient, powerful and terrifying, but for the first time in centuries, it had a guardian who was not alone. Edrin Hale had never felt so small and yet so responsible in his life. The frost of early morning clung to his coat, and Pyra's small flames danced nervously against the cold air. Beneath the tree, the ancient chamber pulsed with a faint blue light, humming like a heartbeat that grew louder with every passing minute. The vibrations through the soil were stronger than ever. Whatever lay beneath the roots was stirring, and alone, the baby dragon could not keep it sealed for much longer. Edrin understood that a choice had to be made, and it was his choice to make. The first signs came in the form of distant shadows. Strange ships appeared above the farm, hovering silently in the dawn light. Their shapes were angular, unfamiliar, and cold. Edrin felt a chill unrelated to the frost. He knew what they wanted. Across the stars, sensors had likely detected the pulsing energy beneath the tree. Galactic forces had come not to protect but to take. They would extract the chamber regardless of the destruction it might leave behind. And if they failed, the thing inside would break free, spreading chaos far beyond this small patch of land. Pyra crouched low, smoke rising in thin spirals from its nostrils. Its small wings fluttered nervously. The baby dragon's fire flared in sharp bursts, hotter and more desperate than ever. Edrin reached out, resting a hand gently on the dragon's scaled head. "We don't have to let them take it," he whispered. Pyra's golden eyes met his, wide and trembling. It was afraid, not of him, not of the humans, but of failure. It had kept this ancient thing sealed alone for decades, and now it feared that outside forces could break the balance it had worked so hard to maintain. The farmer scanned the area. The alien ships did not land. They hovered, silent and menacing. Edrin realized they were waiting, watching, calculating. They saw him as weak, a human incapable of protecting anything of importance. But Edrin had learned from Pyra. Fear could guide action. Courage was not absence of fear, it was the decision to act despite it. He would not let them destroy the farm or wake the chamber beneath the tree. He had to act, and he had to act now. He picked up a small metal rod from the frost-covered ground, nothing more than a farming tool, but in his hands it felt significant. He began to dig carefully around the edges of the tree, reinforcing the roots, adjusting the soil to stabilize the chamber below. Pyra flared its wings, fire crackling in the cold air, and the vibrations in the soil lessened slightly. Together, human and dragon were slowing the pulse, holding the ancient force in check. It was exhausting, and Edrin could feel sweat freezing on his skin, but the thought of failure, of letting the chamber fall into the wrong hands, gave him strength. The alien ships began to descend, strange beams of light scanning the ground. Shadows moved across the frost, cold and precise. Edrin and Pyra worked quickly, reinforcing the tree's roots and strengthening the small lock that held the chamber. Pyra's fire hissed in bursts, controlled and purposeful. The baby dragon had guided him every step of the way, teaching him how to use the simplest tools to stabilize something far beyond human design. Edrin realized that the alien forces would not understand the connection between fear and action, between instinct and courage. They would see only a human and a small dragon. They would underestimate him, and that could be his advantage. Hours passed. The ground trembled more violently now, as though the chamber was testing their strength. Pyra's fire flared to its maximum, heat radiating in waves. Edrin placed his hands on the roots, feeling the pulse of energy beneath them. His mind raced, calculating every move. Every adjustment, every push of soil, every flare of fire had to be perfect. One mistake, one misstep, and the chamber could break free, or the aliens could seize it. He could feel Pyra's fear mirrored in his own heart, but he did not let it control him. Fear was a guide, action was the choice. Then, in a sudden moment, the chamber pulsed violently, brighter than ever, and the roots of the tree shivered. Pyra hissed in alarm, flames licking the frost. Edrin's fingers ached, but he pressed harder, stabilizing the soil and using small stones to reinforce the edges of the roots. He whispered to the dragon, steadying it. "We can do this. Together." Pyra leaned against him, trembling but trusting, and the fire burned steadier, more controlled. The vibrations slowed, a faint pulse now instead of a roar. They were holding the chamber together, and for the first time, Edrin felt a surge of confidence. The alien ships hovered above, their lights scanning, but they made no move to land. They were cautious, calculating. They had underestimated the strength of human will, and now they waited, watching a small dragon and a single human defend something they could not even understand. Edrin understood something vital in that moment. Courage was contagious. Pyra had taught him to act despite fear, and now the dragon saw that he would not fail. Together they could protect the chamber longer than anyone expected. Edrin's choice became clear. He would stay. He would defend this ancient thing not because he wanted glory or power but because it was the right thing to do. Pyra had spent decades alone, and he would not let the baby dragon bear that burden any longer. They worked through the night, reinforcing roots, adjusting soil and flaring fire with precision. Every pulse of the chamber beneath them tested their resolve, but human ingenuity and dragon instinct kept it contained. By dawn, the frost glimmered, the fire calmed to a steady glow, and the vibrations had slowed to a faint pulse. Edrin collapsed against the base of the tree, exhausted but alive. Pyra curled beside him, smoke rising gently, golden eyes alert but calmer. The alien ships retreated, their calculations proving the humans were not so weak after all. Edrin realized that this night had changed everything. Humans were not only capable of courage, they could choose to protect the universe when others failed. And a small dragon, afraid but determined, had guided him every step of the way. For the first time, Edrin understood the meaning of choice. It was not just an action but a commitment. He had chosen to stay, to fight fear with will, and to protect something far older and far greater than himself. Pyra had chosen trust, and together, they had held back a power that could have destroyed worlds. The frost melted slightly under the rising sun, the old tree stood unburned, and beneath it, the chamber pulsed quietly, still alive, still dangerous, but held in place by a human and a dragon who refused to fail. The morning sun rose slowly over Edrin Hale's farm, painting the frost in shades of gold and silver. The old tree stood tall and unburned, its leaves glinting in the light, and Pyra, the small baby dragon, crouched at its base, wings folded and smoke curling gently from its nostrils. Beneath the tree, the ancient chamber pulsed quietly, its blue glow faint but steady. The danger was not gone but it was contained, for now. Edrin had faced fear, acted despite it, and chosen to protect what no one else could. And in doing so, he had changed something far larger than his small farm. The alien ships that had hovered the night before had not returned. Edrin guessed they had learned something about humans that they had never expected. Across the galaxy, their sensors recorded the events though they could not understand them. A single human, working with a small dragon, had held back a force they had long thought too ancient to resist. The lesson was clear: humans were not weak. They were clever, resourceful, and capable of courage that even advanced civilizations often underestimated. Edrin did not care about fame, but the galaxy had noticed. Pyra stirred, lifting her head to look at Edrin. Her golden eyes were no longer wide with fear but alert and calm. The baby dragon had taught him lessons, yes, but he had taught her something too. She had learned that humans could be trusted, that their courage was real. For decades, Pyra had guarded the ancient chamber alone, relying on instinct and fear to keep it sealed. Now she had a partner. Together, they were stronger than any force that might come to take the weapon or awaken the chamber. Edrin's hands were sore from digging, adjusting soil and reinforcing the tree roots, but he did not feel tired in the way he expected. There was a strange, quiet pride in his chest. He had chosen responsibility over fear. He had stood with Pyra when most would have run. And in doing so, he had protected something that had been buried for centuries, a force that could have destroyed countless worlds. The galaxy would not know the details, but the story would spread. Humans had made a mark not through violence or conquest, but through courage, loyalty, and careful action. Over the next days, Edrin worked with Pyra to maintain the seal. They checked the tree, adjusted soil, and kept the fire steady when tremors beneath the roots pulsed unexpectedly. The baby dragon had learned to trust him completely, and Edrin had learned to read her signals, to act when the ground shivered or the air crackled with the faint hum of alien metal. The chamber remained quiet, but it was alive, a sleeping giant held in place by the combined vigilance of a human and a dragon. Word slowly spread across the stars. Scouts, traders, and travelers carried stories of a farmer who had faced ancient power with nothing but courage and simple tools. Some dismissed it as myth, as humans often were underestimated. But others, especially the alien observers, understood the truth. A human could act with wisdom, empathy, and bravery where others relied on force. And a baby dragon, once thought weak and timid, had chosen trust over fear, forming a partnership that no advanced technology could easily overcome. Edrin often sat beside the old tree in the evenings, Pyra curled against his legs. The frost glimmered faintly, the ground beneath quiet and calm. He could still feel the pulse of the chamber beneath the soil, steady and silent, and he knew that it was contained not just by force, but by understanding. The galaxy had many powerful weapons, but few guardians capable of restraint and courage. Humans, at their best, could be more than conquerors or settlers, they could be protectors. And this truth, once demonstrated, would ripple outward in ways Edrin could never fully see. Occasionally, other humans and aliens came to observe the farm. They approached quietly, not daring to disturb the tree or the dragon. Some asked questions, some studied the soil, some simply watched the bond between the farmer and the baby dragon. Edrin answered only what he could, careful not to reveal the full power beneath the roots. He understood that secrecy was part of protection. The galaxy did not need to know everything, only that a human could hold back something ancient and dangerous with courage and wisdom. Pyra grew slightly larger over the months, but she remained cautious, small and alert. She never forgot the fear she had carried for decades, guarding the chamber alone. Now, with Edrin by her side, her fire burned with calm determination. The dragon had learned that trust could strengthen her, and that courage was contagious. Edrin, in turn, had learned from Pyra that fear was not weakness, it was guidance. Together, they created a balance that no alien power could easily disrupt. The farm became a quiet legend. Across the galaxy, messages traveled about the human who had faced ancient alien power and survived. The story did not glorify destruction or conquest. It celebrated something far rarer: careful action, courage in the face of fear, and the choice to protect rather than dominate. Even the alien forces who had watched from afar recorded the events. They had learned that humans could act in ways that no algorithm or weapon could predict. Sometimes the smallest actions, steady hands, careful decisions, and trust, were enough to change the course of history. Years later, Edrin would remember the first night he saw the fire burn the tree and the small dragon trembling beside it. He had been terrified, unsure of what lay beneath, unsure of his own courage. But he had chosen to act, to stand with Pyra, to protect what no one else could. And in doing so, he had shown the galaxy that humans could be more than weak, more than careless. They could be guardians of ancient power, holders of secrets that even the stars had forgotten. The old tree continued to stand, unburned, its roots strong and secure. Pyra curled beneath it, smoke rising in quiet spirals. And Edrin Hale, the simple farmer, had become something far greater than he had ever imagined. A symbol of human courage, a reminder to the galaxy that even the smallest person, acting with wisdom and bravery, could protect what the universe had long feared. Fear had guided the dragon, courage had guided the human, and together they had created a balance that would last for generations. In the end, the galaxy learned a lesson it could not ignore. Humans were unpredictable, fearless when it mattered, and capable of protecting the ancient and the dangerous with nothing but will, care, and courage. And sometimes that was enough to change the fate of worlds. Edrin Hale looked at Pyra, smiled, and whispered, "We did it, little one." Pyra flicked her wings once, smoke curling gently, and for the first time, neither fear nor danger clouded the frost-covered field. Together they had changed everything.